Hello, 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 Grand Rising, everyone, Grand Rising family, peace and light to everyone on this beautiful Wednesday. It is Hump Day, hmm and I am up and at 'em, and I am ready to start my morning show. hmm I was up early, y'all, but I went back to sleep in the chair. I had gotten up early, honey, about 4 o'clock, made my coffee. I sit down, I drink my coffee, I went over my little whatever, my emails and checked all my stuff that I need to do, things that I do every morning, wash my face and all that good stuff. And honey, I come back, I sit down and I fell asleep. So I am late today starting my show. But anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure you give me some likes as you come into the room. Hit the notification bell twice. That's after you subscribe, of course. Please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell twice. That way, whenever I go live or whatever I do on my channel, you will be here for it. And we have someone this morning. All right. Good morning, Bench Thinker. Hello, hello, hello. Grand rising to you. Grand rising to you. I hope you stick around. I am going to be reading. We chose a book this month for my book club that I'm going to do until the end of the year, until December. And that book is The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. We are on chapter 7. There's a few more chapters. I'm going to try, if I can, finish the book up. If not in this session, I will read as much as I can and come back later on this evening and finish the book up because today is September the 30th, the last day in the month. So I need to get this book finished because next month we have another book that we are going to be reading starting October the 1st. And I will announce that book on tomorrow when I start to read it. Okay. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start reading. I won't be watching the chat because I'm going to be reading this book. So, whatever comments you want to make, you're welcome to leave any comments in the chat. And I appreciate you being here with me today. Peace and blessings to you all. Okay. The game of life and how to play it. Chapter 7 Love. Every man on this planet is taking his initiation in love. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another. Osman Sky states, Deuterium organum, that is, Deuterium organum, that love is a cosmic phenomenon and opens to man the fourth dimensional world, the world of the wondrous. Excuse me. Real love is selfless and free from fear. It pours itself out upon the object of its affection without demanding any return. Its joy is in the joy of giving. Love is God in manifestation and the strongest magnetic force in the universe. Pure, unselfish love draws itself draws to itself its own. It does not need to seek or demand. Scarcely anyone has the faintest conception of real love. Man is selfish, tyrannical, or fear in his affections, thereby losing the things he loved. Jealousy is the worst enemy of love, for the imagination runs riot, seeing the loved one attracted to another. And invariably, these fears objectify if they are not neutralized. For example, a woman came to me in deep distress. The man she loved had left her for another woman. No, excuse me, the man had left her for other women and said he never intended to marry her. She was torn with jealousy and resentment and said she hoped he would suffer as he had made her suffer, and added, how could he leave me when I loved him so much? I replied, "You are not loving that man, you are hating him." And added, "You can never receive what you have never given. Give a perfect love, and you will receive a perfect love. Perfect, perfect yourself on this man. Give him a perfect, unselfish love, demanding nothing in return. Do not criticize or condemn, and bless him wherever he is." She replied, "No, I won't bless him unless I know where he is." "Well," I said, "that is not real love. When you send out real love will return to you, either from this man or his equivalent. For if this man is not the divine selection, you will not want him. As you are one with God, you are one with the love which belongs to you by divine right." Several months passed and matters remained about the same, but she was working consciously. Am I still alive? Okay, I hope I'm still alive. It looked like I had a little. Okay, excuse me. She replied, "No, I won't bless him unless I know where he is." "Well," I said, "that is not real love. When you send out real love will return to you either from this man or his equivalent. For if this man is not the divine selection, you will not want him. As you are one with God, you are one with the love which belongs to you by divine right." Several months passed, the matters remained about the same, but she was working conscientiously with herself. I said, "Why are you no longer disturbed by his cruelty? He will cease to be cruel as you are attracting it through your own emotions." Then I told her of a brotherhood in India who never said good morning to each other. They used these words: "I salute the divinity in you." They saluted the divinity in every man and in the wild animals in the jungle, and they were never harmed, for they saw only God in every living thing. He was a captain and she always called him the cat circle. "And are no longer disturbed by the situation. You will have his love or attract its equivalent." I was moving at this time and did not have a telephone, so was out of touch with her for a few weeks. When one morning I received a letter saying, "We are married." At the earliest opportunity, I paid her a call. My first words were, "What happened?" "Oh," she exclaimed, "a miracle. One day I woke up and all suffering had ceased. I saw him that evening and he asked me to marry him. We were married in about a week, and I have never seen a more devoted man. There is an old saying, no man is your enemy, so one should become impersonal and learn what each man has to teach him. And soon he will learn his lessons and be free. The woman's lover was teaching her selfless love, which every man sooner or later must learn. Suffering is not necessary for man's development. It is the result of violation of spiritual law. But few people seem to be able to rouse themselves from their soul sleep without it. When people are happy, they usually become selfish, and automatically the law of karma is set in action. Man often suffers loss through lack of appreciation. I knew a woman who had a very nice husband, but she said often, "I don't care anything about being married, but that is nothing against my husband. I'm simply not interested in married life." She had other interests and scarcely remembered she had a husband. She only thought of him when she saw him. One day her husband told her he was in love with another woman and left. She came to me in distress and resentment. I replied, "It is exactly what you spoke the word for. You said you didn't care anything about being married, so the subconscious worked to get you unmarried. She said, "Oh, yes, I see. People get what they want and then feel very hurt." She soon became she soon became in perfect harmony with the situation and knew they were both much happier apart. When a woman becomes indifferent or critical and ceases to be an inspiration to her husband, he misses the stimulus of their early relationship and is restless and unhappy. A man came to me dejected, miserable and poor. His wife was interested in the science of numbers and had had him read. It seems the report was not very favorable, for he said, "My wife says I'll never amount to anything because I am a two." I replied, "I don't care what your number is. You are a perfect idea in divine mind, and we will demand the success and prosperity which are already planned for you by the infinite intelligence." Within a few weeks, he had a very fine position, and a year or two later, brilliant success. He achieved a brilliant success as a writer. No man is a success in business unless he loves his work. The picture the artist paints for love, his art is his greatest work. The pot boiler is always something to live down. No man can attract money if he despises it. Many people are kept in poverty by saying money means nothing to me, and I have a contempt for people who have it. This is the reason so many artists are poor. Their contempt for money separates them from it. I remember hearing one artist say of another, "He's no good as an artist. He has money in the bank." This attitude of mine, of course, separates man from his supply. He must be in harmony with the thing in order to attract it. Money is God in manifestation as freedom from want and limitation, but it must be always kept in circulation and put to right uses. Hoarding and saving react with grim vengeance. This does not mean that man should not have houses and lots and stocks and bonds, for the barns of the righteous man shall be full. It means man should not hoard even the principal if an occasion arises when money is necessary. In letting it go out fearlessly and cheerfully, he opens the way for more to come in. But God is man's unfailing and inexhaustible supply. This is the spiritual attitude towards money, and the great bank of the universal never fails. We see an example of hoarding in the film production of Greed. The woman won $5,000 in the lottery, but would not spend it. She hoarded and saved, let her husband suffer and starve, and eventually she scrubbed floors for a living. She loved the money itself and put it above everything, and one night she was murdered and the money taken from her. Is an example of where love of money is the root of all evil. Money in itself is good and beneficial, but used for destructive purposes, hoarded or saved, or considered more important than love, brings disease and disaster and the loss of the money itself. Follow the path of love, and all things are added. For God is love, and God is supply. Follow the path of selfishness and greed, and the supply vanishes, or man is separated from it. For example, I knew the case of a very rich woman who hoarded her income. She rarely gave anything away, but bought and bought and bought things for herself. She was very fond of necklaces, and a friend once asked her how many she possessed. She replied, 67. She bought them and put them away, carefully wrapped in tissue paper. Had she used the necklaces, it would have been quite legitimate, but she was violating the law of use. Her closets were filled with clothes she never wore, and jewels which never saw the light. The woman's arms were gradually becoming paralyzed from holding on to things, and eventually she was considered incapable of looking after her affairs, and her wealth was handed over to others to manage. So, man, in ignorance of the law, brings about his own destruction. All disease, all unhappiness come from the violation of the law of love. Man's boomerangs of hate, resentment, and criticism come back laden with sickness and sorrow. Love seems almost a lost art, but the man with the knowledge of spiritual law knows it must be regained, for without it he has become as sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. For example, I had a student who came to me month after month to clean her consciousness of resentment. After a while, she arrived at the point where she resented only one woman, but that one woman kept her busy. Little by little, she became poised and harmless, and one day all resentment was wiped out. She came in radiant and exclaimed, "You can't understand how I feel. The woman said something to me, and instead of being furious, I was loving and kind, and she apologized and was perfectly lovely to me. No one can understand the marvelous lightness I feel within. Love and goodwill are invaluable in business. For example, a woman came to me complaining of her employer. She said she was cold and critical and knew she did not want her in the position. Well, I replied, salute the divinity in the woman and send her love. She said, I can't. She's a marble woman. I answered, you remember the story of the sculptor who asked for a certain piece of marble? He was asked why he wanted it, and he replied, because there is an angel in the marble, and out of it he produced a wonderful work of art. She said, very well, I tried. A week later, she came back and said, I did what you told me to do, and now the woman is very kind and took me out in her car. People are sometimes filled with remorse for having done someone an unkindness, perhaps years ago. Excuse me. If the wrong cannot be righted, its effects can be neutralized by doing someone a kindness in the present. This one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. Sorrow, regret, and remorse tear down the cells of the body and poison the atmosphere of the individual. A woman said to me in deep sorrow, treat me to be happy and joyous. For my sorrow makes me so irritable with the members of my family that I keep making more karma. I was asked to treat a woman who was mourning for her daughter. I denied all beliefs in loss and separation and affirmed that God was the woman's joy, love, and peace. The woman gained her poise at once but sent word by her son not to treat any longer because she was so happy. It wasn't respectable. So mortal mind loves to hang on to its griefs and regrets. I knew a woman who went about bragging of her troubles. So of course she always had something to brag about. The old idea was if a woman did not worry about her children, she was not a good mother. Now we know that now we know that mother fear is responsible for many of the diseases and accidents which come into the lives of children. For fear pictures vividly the disease or situation feared, and these pictures objectify if not neutralized. Happy is the mother who can say sincerely that she puts her child in God's hands and knows therefore that he is divinely protected. For example, a woman awoke suddenly in the night fearing her brother was in great danger. Instead of giving in to her fears, she commenced making statements of truth, saying, man is a perfect idea in divine mind and is always in his right place. Therefore, my brother is in his right place and is divinely protected. The next day, she found that her brother had been in close proximity of an explosion in a mine, but had miraculously escaped. So man in his so man is his brother's keeper in thought, And every man should know that the thing he loves dwells in the secret place of the Most High, and abides under the shadow of the Almighty. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come near thy dwelling. Perfect love casts out fear. He that feareth is not made in perfect love, and love is the fulfilling of the law. Okay, you guys, that is love. That is chapter 7. Okay, we are going to start chapter 8. Give me just a second. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. I had to get a little water there. Y'all know how reading is. Your mouth gets all dry and everything. Okay, chapter 8, moving right along. Intuition or guidance. There is nothing too great of accomplishment for the man who knows the power of his word and who follows his intuitive lead. By the word he starts in action unseen forces and can rebuild his body or remold his affairs. It is therefore of the utmost importance to choose the right words, and the student carefully selects the affirmation he wishes to catapult into the invisible. He knows that God is his supply, that there is a supply for every demand, and that his spoken word releases this supply. Ask and ye shall receive. Man must make the first move. Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. I have often been asked just how to make a demonstration. I reply, speak the word and then do not do anything until you get a definite lead. Demand the lead, saying, Infinite Spirit, reveal to me the way. Let me know if there is anything for me to do. The answer will come through intuition or a hunch, a chance remark from someone, or a passage in a book, etc., etc. The answers are sometimes quite startling in their exactness. For example, a woman desired a large sum of money. She spoke the words, Infinite Spirit, open the way for my immediate supply. Let all that is mine by divine right now reach me in great avalanches of abundance. Then she added, Give me a definite lead and let me know if there is anything for me to do. The thought came quickly. Give a certain friend who had helped her spiritually $100. She told her friend, who said, Wait and get another lead before giving it. So she waited. And that day met a woman who said to her, I gave someone $1 today. It was just as much for me as it would be for you to give someone 100. This was indeed an unmistakable lead. So she knew she was right in giving the $100. It was a gift which proved a great investment, for shortly after that, a large sum of money came to her in a remarkable way. Giving opens the way for receiving. In order to create activity in finances, one should give. Tithing or giving 1/10 of one's income is an old Jewish custom and is sure to bring increase. Many of the richest men in this country, get off here, have been tithers, and I have never known it to fail as an investment. The tenth part goes forth and returns blessed and multiplied. But the gift of tithe, but the gift or tithe must be given with love and cheerfulness, for God loves a cheerful giver. Bills should be paid cheerfully. All money should be sent forth fearlessly and with a blessing. This attitude of mind makes man master of money. It is his to obey, and his spoken word then opens vast reservoirs of wealth. Man himself limits his supply by his limited vision. Sometimes the student has a great realization of wealth, but is afraid to act. The vision and action must go hand in hand. And in the case of the man who bought, as in the case of the man who bought the fur-lined overcoat, a woman came to me asking me to speak the word for a position. So I demanded, Infinite Spirit, open the way for this woman's right position. Never ask for just a position, ask for the right position. The place already planned in divine mind, as it is the only way that will give satisfaction. I then gave thanks that she had already received and that it would manifest quickly. Very soon she had three positions offered to her, two in New York and one in Palm Beach, and she did not know which one to choose. I said, ask for a definite lead. The time was almost up and was let's see, the time was almost up and was still undecided. When one day she telephoned, when I woke up this morning, I could smell Palm Beach. She had been there before and knew its balmy fragrance. I replied, well, if you could smell Palm Beach from here, it is certainly your lead. She accepted the position and it proved a great success. Often one's lead comes at an unexpected time. One day I was walking down the street when I suddenly felt a strange urge to go to a certain bakery a block or two away. The reasoning mind resisted, arguing, there is nothing there that you want. However, I had learned not to reason. So I went to the bakery, looking at everything, and there was certainly nothing there that I wanted. But coming out, I encountered a woman I had thought of often, who was in great need of the help which I could give her. So often one goes for one thing and finds another. Intuition is a spiritual faculty and does not explain, but simply points the way. A person often receives a lead during a treatment. The idea that comes may seem quite irrelevant, but some of God's leadings are mysterious. In the class, one day I was treating that each individual would receive a definite lead. A woman came to me afterwards and said, while you were treating, I got the hunch to take my furniture out of storage and get an apartment. The woman had come to be treated for help. I told her I knew in getting her a home of her own, her health would improve. And I added, I believe your trouble, which is a congestion and has come from having things stored away. Congestion of things causes congestion in the body. You have violated the law of use and your body is paying the penalty. So I gave thanks that divine order was established in her mind, body, and affairs. People little dream of how their affairs react on the body. There is a mental correspondence for every disease. A person might receive instantaneous healings through the realization of his body being a perfect idea of divine mind, and therefore whole and perfect. But if he continues his destructive thinking, hoarding, hating, fearing, condemning, the disease will return. Jesus Christ knew that all sickness came from sin, but admonished the leper after the healing to go and sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon him. So man's soul or subconscious mind must be washed whiter than snow for permanent healing. And the metaphysician is always delving deep for the correspondence. Jesus Christ said, "Condemn not, lest ye also be condemned. Judge not, lest ye be judged." Many people have attracted disease and unhappiness through condemnation of others. What man condemns in others, he attracts to himself. Let's read that again. What man condemns in others, he attracts to himself. For example, a friend came to me in anger and distress because her husband had deserted her for another woman. She condemned the other woman and continually she knew he was a married and said continually she knew he was a married man and had no right to accept his attention. I replied, "Stop condemning the woman. Bless her and be through with the situation. Otherwise, you are attracting the same thing to yourself." She was deaf to my words, and a year or two later became deeply interested in a married man herself. Man picks up a live wire whenever he criticizes or condemns and may expect a shock. Indecision is a stumbling block in many paths. In order to overcome it, make the statement repeatedly: I am always under direct inspiration. I make right decisions quickly. These words impress the subconscious, and soon one finds himself awake and alert, making his right moves without hesitation. I have found it destructive to look to the psychic plane for guidance, as it is the plane of many minds and not the one mind. As man opens his mind to subjectivity, he becomes a target for destructive forces. The psychic plane is the result of man's mortal thought and is on the plane of opposites. He may receive either good or bad messages. The science of numbers and the reading of horoscopes keep man down on the mental or mortal plane, for they deal only with karmic path. I know of a man who should have been dead years ago, according to his horoscope, but he is alive and a leader of one of the biggest movements in the country for the uplifting of humanity. It takes a very strong mind to neutralize a prophecy of evil. The student should declare, "Every false prophecy shall come to naught. Every plan my Father in heaven has not planned shall be dissolved and dissipated. The divine idea now comes to pass." However, if any good messages have ever been given one, excuse me, however, if any good message, okay, has ever been given one of coming happiness or wealth, harbor and expect it, and it will manifest sooner or later through the law of expectancy. Man's will should be used to back the universal will. I will that the will of God be done. It is God's will to every it is God's will to give every man every righteous desire of his heart, and man's will should be used to hold the perfect vision without wavering. The prodigal son said, "I will arise and go to my father." It is indeed often an effort of the will to leave the husk and swine of mortal thinking. It is so much easier for the average person to have fear than faith. So faith is an effort of the will. As man becomes spiritually awakened, he recognizes that any external inharmony is the correspondence of mental inharmony. If he stumbles or falls, he may know he is stumbling or falling in consciousness. One day, a student was walking along the street condemning someone in her thoughts. She was saying mentally, "That woman is the most disagreeable woman on the earth," when suddenly three Boy Scouts rushed around the corner and almost knocked her over. She did not condemn the Boy Scouts, but immediately called on the law of forgiveness and saluted the divinity in the woman. Wisdom's way are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. When one has made his demand upon the universal, he must be ready for surprises. Everything may be seen to be going wrong when in reality it is going right. For example, a woman was told that there was no loss in divine mind. Therefore, she could not lose anything which belonged to her. Anything lost would be returned or she would receive its equivalent. Several years previously, she had lost $2,000. She had loaned the money to a relative during her lifetime, but the relative had died, leaving no mention of it in her will. The woman was resentful and angry, and as she had no written statement of the transaction, she never received the money. So she determined to deny the loss and collect the $2,000 from the Bank of the Universal. She had to begin by forgiving the woman, as resentment and unforgiveness closed the doors of this wonderful bank. She made this statement: I deny loss. There is no loss in divine mind. Therefore, I cannot lose the $2,000 which belong to me by divine right. As one door shuts, another door opens. She was living in an apartment house which was for sale, and in the lease was a clause stating that if the house was sold, the tenant would be required to move out within 90 days. Suddenly, the landlord broke the leases and raised the rent. Again, injustice was on her pathway, but this time she was undisturbed. She blessed the landlord and said, as the rent has been raised, it means that I'll be that much richer, for God is my supply. New leases were made out for the advance rent, but by divine mistake, the 90 days clause had been forgotten. Soon after, the landlord had an opportunity to sell the house. On account of the mistake in the new leases, the tenant held possession for another year. The agent offered each tenant $200 if he would vacate. Several families moved. Three remained, including the woman. A month or two passed, and the agent appeared. This time, he said to the woman, will you break your lease for the sum of $1,500? It flashed upon her, here comes the $2,000. She remembered having said to friends in the house, we will all act together if anything more is said about leaving. So her lead was to consult her friends. These friends said, well, if they have offered you $1,500, they will certainly give $2,000. So she received a check for $2,000 for giving up her apartment. It was certainly a remarkable working of the law, and apparent injustice was merely opening the way for her demonstration. It proved that there is no loss, and when man takes his spiritual stand, he collects all that is his from this great reservoir of good. I will restore to you the years the locusts have eaten. The locusts are the doubts, the fears, resentment, and regrets of mortal thinking. These adverse thoughts alone rob man, but no man gives to himself but himself, and no man takes away from himself but himself. Man is here to prove God and to bear witness to the truth, and he can only prove God by bringing plenty out of lack and justice out of injustice. Prove me now herewith, says the Lord of hosts. Let's read that again. Prove me now herewith, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Okay, we have 60 pages and we are on page 46. Uh, and that is, excuse me, I am so sorry. Oh, please excuse me for yawning. And that, okay, yeah, the book is 60 pages. We're on page 46. And chapter 9 starts on page 46. Chapter nine's title is Perfect Self Expression or the Divine Design. Okay, hold on just a second. Let me take another little drink of water here. Okay, we're on page 46, chapter 9, Perfect Self Expression or the Divine Design. There is for each man perfect self expression. There is a place which he is to feel and no one else can feel, something which he is to do which no one else can do. It is his destiny. This achievement is held a perfect idea in divine mind, awaiting man's recognition. As the imaging faculty is the creative faculty, it is necessary for man to see the idea before it can manifest. So, man's highest demand is for the divine design of his life. He may not have the faintest conception of what it is, for there is possibly some marvelous talent hidden deep within him. His demand should be infinite spirit, open the way for the divine design of my life to manifest. Let the genius within me now be released. Let me see clearly the perfect plan. The perfect plan includes health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. This is the square of life, which brings perfect happiness. When one has made this demand, he may find great changes taking place in his life, for nearly every man has wandered far from the divine design. I know in one woman's case, it was as though a cyclone had struck her affairs, but readjustments came quickly, and new and wonderful conditions took the place of old ones. Perfect self-expression will never be labor, but of such absorbing interest that it would seem almost like play. The student knows also as man comes into the world financed by God, the supply needed for his perfect self expression will be at hand. Many a genius has struggled for years with the problems of supply when his spoken word and faith would have released quickly the necessary funds. For example, after the class one day, a man came to me and handed me a cent. He said, I have just 7 cents in the world, and I'm going to give you one, for I have faith in the power of your spoken word. I want you to speak the word for my perfect self expression and prosperity. I spoke the word and did not see him again until a year later. He came in one day successfully and happy with a roll of yellow bills in his pocket. He said, immediately after you spoke the word, I had a position offered to me in a distant city, and I am now demonstrating health, happiness, and supply. A woman's perfect self expression may be in becoming a perfect wife, a perfect mother, a perfect homemaker, and not necessarily in having a public career. Demand definite leads, and the way will be made easy and successful. One should not visualize or force a mental picture. When he demands a divine design to come into his conscious mind, he will receive flashes of inspiration and begin to see himself making some great accomplishment. This is the picture or idea he must hold without wavering. The thing man seeks is seeking himself. The telephone was seeking Bell. Parents should never force careers and professions upon their children. With a knowledge of spiritual truth, the divine plan could be spoken for early in childhood or prenatally. A prenatal treatment should be let the God in this child have perfect expression. Let the divine design of his mind, body, and affairs be made manifest throughout his life, throughout eternity. God's will be done, not man's. God's patterns, not man's pattern, is the command we find running through all the scriptures. And the Bible is the book dealing with the science of the mind. It is a book telling man how to release his soul or subconscious mind from bondage. The battles described are pictures of man waging war against mortal thoughts. A man's foes shall be they of his own household. Each man is Jehoshaphat, and every man is David, who slays Goliath, mortal thinking, with the little white stone. Faith. So man must be careful that he is not the wicked and slothful servant who buried his talent. There is a terrible penalty to be paid for not using one's ability. Often fear stands between man and his perfect self expression. Stage fright has hampered many a genius. This may be overcome by spoken word or treatment. The individual then loses all self consciousness and feels simply that he is a channel for infinite intelligence to express itself through. He is under direct inspiration, fearless and confident, for he feels that it is the Father within him who does the work. A young boy came often to my class with his mother. He asked me to speak the word for his coming examination at school. I told him to make the statement. I am one with infinite intelligence. I know everything I should know on this subject. He had an excellent knowledge of history, but was not sure of his arithmetic. I saw him afterwards and he said, I spoke the word for my arithmetic and passed with the highest honors, but thought I could depend on myself for history and got a very poor mark. Man often receives a setback when he is too sure of himself, which means he is trusting to his personality and not the Father within. Another one of my students gave me an example of this. She took an extended trip abroad one summer, visiting many countries where she was ignorant of the language. She was calling for guidance and protection every minute, and her affairs went smoothly and miraculously. Her luggage was never delayed nor lost. Accommodations were always ready for her at the best hotels, and she had the perfect service wherever she went. She returned to New York. Knowing the language, she felt God was no longer necessary, so she looked after her affairs in an ordinary manner. Everything went wrong. Her trunks delayed. Amid inharmony and confusion, the student must form the habit of practicing the presence of God every minute. In all thy ways acknowledge him. Nothing is too small or too great. Sometimes an incident excuse me, let me read that again. Excuse me. Sometimes an insignificant incident may be the turning point in a man's life. Robert Fulton, watching some boiling water simmering in a tea kettle, saw a steamboat. I have seen a student often keep back his demonstration through resistance or pointing the way. He pins his faith to one channel only and dictates just the way he desires the manifestation to come, which brings things to a standstill. My way, not your way, is the command of infinite intelligence. Like all power, be it steam or electricity, it must have a non resistant engine or instrument to work through. And man is that engine or instrument. Over and over again, man is told to stand still. O Judah, fear not, but tomorrow go out against them, for the Lord will be with you. Ye shall not need to fight this battle. Set yourself, stand ye still, and see the salvation of the Lord with you. We see this in the incidents of the $2,000 coming to the woman through the landlord when she became non resistant and undisturbed, and the woman who won the man's love after all the suffering had ceased. The student's goal is poise. Poise is power, for it gives God's power a chance to rush through man, to will and to do its good pleasure. Poised, he thinks clearly and makes right decisions quickly. He never misses a trick. Anger blurs the vision, poisons the blood, is the root of many diseases, and causes wrong decisions leading to failure. It has been named one of the worst sins as its reaction is so harmful. The student learns that in metaphysics science, excuse me, the student learns that in metaphysics, sin has a much broader meaning than in the old teaching. Whatsoever is not of faith is sin. He finds that fear and worry are deadly sins. They are inverted faith, and through distorted mental pictures, excuse me, brings to pass the thing he fears. He works it. His work is to drive out these enemies from the subconscious mind. When man is fearless, he is finished. Madeline says that man is God afraid. Okay, hold on one second. Let me get some more water. Okay, I'm going to finish this page up and we're going to stop, and then I will come back this evening and read the last 11 pages. Okay, let's read that last line again. Oh, I had to get some more water, y'all. We're getting through it. Okay, let's read the last line again. He finds that fear and worry are deadly sins. They are inverted faith, and through distorted mental pictures, bring to pass the thing he fears. His work is to drive out these enemies from the subconscious mind. When man is fearless, he is finished. Maeterlinck says that man is God afraid. So, as we read in the so as we read in the previous chapters, man can only vanquish fear by walking up to the thing that he is afraid of. When Jehoshaphat and his army prepared to meet the enemy, singing, "Praise the Lord, for his mercy endureth forever," they found their enemies had destroyed each other and there was nothing to fight. For example, a woman asked a friend to deliver a message to another friend. The woman feared to give the message as the reasoning mind said, "Don't get mixed up in this affair. Don't give that message." She was troubled in spirit, for she had given her promise. At last she determined to walk up to the lion and call on the law of divine protection. She met the friend to whom she was to deliver the message. She opened her mouth to speak it when her friend said, "So and so has left town." This made it unnecessary to give the message, as the situation depended upon the person being in town. As she was willing to do it, she was not obligated to, as she did not fear the situation vanished. The student often delays his demonstration through belief in incompletion. He should make this statement: "In divine mind, there is only completion. Therefore, my demonstration is completed. My perfect work, my perfect home, my perfect health, whatever he demands are perfect ideas registered in divine mind and must manifest under grace in a perfect way." He gives thanks he has already received on the invisible and makes active preparation for receiving on the visible. I'm going to stop there and we will be continuing and finish up our book this evening. I will be back. I will set my no, I'm not going to set it. I'll be back, say between 5 and 6 o'clock, and we will finish up these last 11 pages of the book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. And this is how to play the game of life spiritually. Let's see. I got that wrong there. Let me just type that there. How to play the game of life. Let's correct that. Okay. Spiritually. So I still didn't put a space there. Okay. We got it. Did I get it? Yeah. Okay. Here we go. How to play the game of life spiritually. Okay, so that is it for now. It is about 10:45. We've been on almost an hour. I thank you guys for joining me. Make sure you give me some likes, share this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell twice. That way, whenever I go live or whatever I do on my channel, you will be here for it. Peace, peace, family. I will be back this afternoon. Have a great one. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Namaste.